How's it going, my true people? DrSlaking, the Slacking Doctor, back with week 6 of the UBL, I believe, and this week we're going up against my man OPJellicent and his Toronto Leaf Sums. If you missed the team builder, that should have been up yesterday, but I will quickly recap the team and everything like that for you. But before we do that, I want to give a huge shout out to my man AutoMatthic for recording this battle for me. I cannot thank people that record battles for me enough. Obviously, without them doing this, we just wouldn't have Wi-Fi content on the channel, and AutoMatthic has recently just been kind of brought into the WBE fold as a coach. So definitely go check out his channel. The link is down in the description with the rest of the UBL coaches and show him some love because the WB is fantastic and AutoMatthic deserves it. But moving on from that, huge shout out to my opponent OPJellicent today, a good friend at this point in the community, someone who has beaten us at the last 2 times we've played. So yeah, we're out for blood here today. We want to win if we can, but we know that it's an incredibly tough game, and currently my man OPJellicent is undefeated in the UBL, so very scary prospect here for us. But I apologise for the background noise of the fan. I mentioned in my team builder I was going to try and record late last night so that I didn't have to have the fan on. I did, but I was really unsatisfied with how the commentary for that battle came out, so I'm just re-recording it essentially. I think that the kind of quality trade-off of having the background noise of the fan for actual decent commentary, or as decent as I ever have, is probably worth it. So let's jump into the analysis quickly of team preview. We have the Palisand here, which is Spadef to take on the Rotom Heat. We have a AV Metagross with Pursuit Trap to potentially take on a Latios, or Mega Latios, sorry, which didn't come. We have a Leftovers bulky Pivot Whimsicott. We have a very bulky Leftovers Slack Off Infernape to take on a Weavile, which didn't come. We have a speed boosting Darkinium Z Sharpedo, and we have a Spadef Rindo Berry Rotom to take on the Manaphy. We have Volt Switch, U-Turn. So we have like a little Volt Turn core here with those 3 mons in particular. And we're really just going to try and, I guess, keep the offensive momentum, stay on the front foot, but with like a bulky team, just wearing him down, making him pivot around a lot, making him take rocks a lot, and then put everything in range of this Sharpedo, which can clean up. So looking at my opponent's team, I'm not surprised to see no Weavile. I don't think it had the best matchup. It does struggle to break through things like Ape, for example, and it can be kind of dealt with revenge with things like Bullet Punch, Metagross, things like that. It can be lured with like a Cobble Berry, Metagross. There's various things we can do to kind of lure and beat Weavile. Yachi Berry, Whimsicott would be another thing, for example. So I'm not surprised to not see the Weavile here. The other thing that is missing is a Mega Latios. Again, not really shocked to not see the Mega Latios because, again, we have various things between Palisand and Metagross, as well as things in Whimsicott and potentially like Scarf, Infernape, Scarf, Diggersby that can take it on, switch into it, and Revenge Kill it. Again, Sharpedo as well with the speed boost can do that. So yeah, I feel like I kind of understood the 2 high-tier mons that didn't come, even though we had to prep for them. I get why they didn't come. So instead, we're really looking and thinking, okay, this team is relatively bulky here this week, actually, and not super strong, because this isn't Z Manaphy. The only potential Zs are the Cobalion and the Crobat. Looking at his team in terms of speed control, if he wants to bring a Scarfer, I think it's likely to be the Manaphy or the Cobalion, because I think he wants a Scarfer that can easily revenge kill Scarf Diggersby, which Rotom Heat wouldn't do that effectively. Gramble and Hippo, of course, wouldn't do. And Crobat is his kind of main speed control outside of Scarfers, so I don't feel like that will necessarily be Scarfed in this matchup, certainly. For example, Scarf Brave Bird just gets walled hard by Metagross plus Rotom Wash, so I think it likely wants its coverage, and if I had to guess, I think it would probably be a special set, so that it can run Heat Wave for Metagross, Giga Drain for the Rotom, and then maybe like Air Slash, maybe, but it could just be like Sludge Bomb, Nasty Plot, and have no Flying Stab potentially, I think. So that's my kind of guess at team preview. Looking at the matchup, I think that Shark could do really well here. If we chip down the Manaphy, we can hit that with our Darkinium Z. A little bit chip on Rotom, will die to Liquidation. About 40% probably on Hippo. We probably do about 60% with an Adamant Liquidation. We definitely need some chip on the Cobalion to make sure that thing dies to an Earthquake. I also think if the Cobalion isn't Scarf, which I think it looks the most likely Scarfer, but if it isn't Scarf, I think it's Shuckerberry to take on the Diggersby. That way you can take on like a double dance Diggersby as well. It doesn't have to be Scarf, it's just Revenge Kill Scarf Diggersby. If it's like Agility Diggersby, I mean. So yeah, I think that's possible. And I think that this could be like could even be 4 attacks Assault Vest Gramble potentially, but I really need to get into the game to kind of feel out the Gramble. I wasn't super expecting Gramble to come. So I do think the Shark can do really well. I've just got to get rid of that Intimidator and the Cobalion, find out what kind of Resist Berry it is, or what kind of set it is in general on the Cobalion, because that is a problem. And I also need to be wary of things like Sash Crobat and a potential substitute Crobat, because I don't want Shark to get beaten on a Protect turn by like Substitute or something like that. So I just lead off with my Palisand. I very rarely lead with my Stealth Rock. If you've been a fan of the channel for a while, I doubt you can even tell me the last time I just led with Stealth Rocks. I don't generally do it. But in this game, I felt like rocks were so huge to break potential Sash on Crobat, to chip down the Rotom, and in general, just to put things in range of Shark. I felt like hazards were so huge. The first time OPJellicent and I played, I didn't get my hazards up, and he was able to just pivot around the whole match with his fat stuff, and I wasn't really able to break him, and we had a really long defensive game where if I'd had hazards up, I really think I could have done a lot better. So unfortunately, I can't get hazards up on this Manaphy, but I wasn't afraid of the Manaphy lead from him because I knew that I could pivot pretty safely into a combination of either Whimsicott or Rotom. I don't think he's ever going to Raw Ice Beam there or Raw Energy Ball because, as I say, he doesn't exactly know which one I'm going into, so probably just going through Stab is the best play. Here we can go for the Energy Ball. He does outspeed me. But we do have the Rindo Berry, so we can just Volt Switch out here, and you see we chew up that Rindo Berry, and so this is really important information here because he switches up moves, so that shows me that he's not Scarf, and that Volt Switch you can see does, sorry, I'm trying to like get everything in. This is a really like complex game to commentate. There's a lot of calcs and stuff going on here, so that shows me that this thing is bulky, right? Maybe max HP, maybe Assault Vest, something like that. We have quite a lot of speed on Rotom, so it looks like it could be Assault Vest for attacks is my guess. Probably doesn't have Tail Glow. But we are able to tank that and bring in Storm. Here I'm just going to go for the U-turn because if he clicks anything he goes for Ice Beam and I can bring in my Infernape anyway, but more than likely he goes out into the Rotom and that means that I can potentially get my Rocks up, and that's what I wanted from the beginning anyway. So I've traded about 40% on my Rotom, I think it was, maybe 60% on my Rotom, somewhere in that region, around the 50% mark anyway, for about 30%, 40% on his Manaphy, and I've got to find out a lot of valuable information. The Manaphy probably isn't set up, so I probably don't need to worry about it, but it probably is Assault Vest, so I'm not going to break it as easily as I wanted. Here, the only thing he can really go for is like a Toxic, Will-O-Wisp, or Hex. I don't think Hex, he has room for it against my team at all. I don't think it makes any sense. So I think my rocks are pretty free, and at worst I get Toxic. As it happens, he's Will-O-Wisp, and that is no bad thing. It makes perfect sense once to burn things like Diggersby, for example. My team is heavily physical, so I can understand that, but I don't care about being burnt. Here I'm going to pivot out on a potential defog into my Rotom, because my Rotom applies so much offensive pressure against his team. His only electric immunity is the Hippo, which dies to a Hydro Pump, and his only, and the electric resist is here, but this dies to a Hydro Pump, and the only the only water resist is a Manaphy, which he doesn't want to take a Volt Switch or a Discharge. So I just feel like Rotom is so free in this game. I feel like it's amazing. So here I considered just Volt Switching, but I didn't know if I would outspeed his Rotom, and I didn't want to leave his Rotom in. I do have a fairly speedy Rotom myself, but as you can see, his Rotom is even faster, so he manages to get the fast Volt Switch out there. It does do a little chunk to us, so now Bosch, unfortunately, is quite low, but it's not the worst thing in the world, because I am just going to get a pump off here. As long as I land it, we're going to do big damage to something. And he goes into Cobalion, and you might have seen that this Cobalion is actually on a balloon, so that tells me that he probably doesn't have any Scarfers, and that means that the Crobat almost certainly is going to be offensive. I don't think you bring no Scarfers and like a defensive Crobat. I still think it could be like Sash or something like that, but it looks more likely to be Z to me in this kind of situation, and looks even more likely to be special. Here I'm going to go into Infernape, because I know that I will at least speed tie with this thing, and because he's Air Balloon, I know he's not a boosting item, so I should be able to take any 2 hits from this thing. Close combat could be a roll, but does he risk the speed tie? Is he even max speed? Does he stay in here? I doubt it. He's seen that I'm pretty bulky, so I suppose he could do, but I don't know, risking the roll and everything else seems a little bit risky. If I'm like Mach Punch or something like that as well, then I'm going to do a whole lot with his minus defense, so I'm just going to go for the Slack Off, because I think his best play is to go into Hippo. It's a very, very safe switch. And this is really what we've been trying to achieve here. So because the Hippo is such a safe switch, that's the reason that I don't think he risks his Cobalion against the speed tie Infernape. I think it's more likely he just goes into Hippo. But that's really what I wanted to do. The reason that I wanted to bring in Ape on that Cobalion, take that huge damage, go for Slack Off, is because I wanted to bring out the Hippowdon. Because what that gives me is my Palisand again. Yes, he can set rocks up, and he might double, but assuming that he just goes for his own rocks, I feel like rocks are so much better for me than they are for him. With things like the Manaphy wanting to get chipped down for the Shark, with things like Crobat wanting to get potential Sash broken, with the Rotom Heat wanting to get chipped down as much as possible, I feel like for me, rocks on his side are so much better. Like, I don't care if he gets rocks up on my side, I'll learn to live with it. I think it's like Metagross, Palisand, like, they don't care. So here I'm back up to full. I'm just going to pivot out. And I feel like we're really in a good position at this point because he does stay in with his Hippowdon here, which means that I am guaranteed getting my rocks up. If he wants to go hard Rotom to defog, then he's going to take them down on my side, and I'm going to get the switch initiative again and be able to bring something hard in on Rotom to apply pressure, or even this time just Shadow Ball with Crystal into the Rotom potentially if I want to do that, and he's going to be taking Sand Chip plus Shadow Ball damage as he's defogging and being relatively passive. So I have a few options here to go with, so I do just set up the rocks as he goes hard into Cobalion, which was a super aggressive switch, but one I can appreciate. If I had Earth Powered there, for example, I suppose he still would have been able to go into the Manaphy to revenge kill me and apply some offensive pressure again, because I would have rocks up on my side, so me trying to go into Rotom or something like that, I'd have to predict around the Manaphy, which could be scary. So I can completely understand this, because if I do go for rocks like I do, it means that he just gets his Cobalion in for free. Here I'm just going to stay in and go for the Shadow Ball. I thought this might be able to KO. I don't know if it was a roll, I have no idea, but either way, if it was, we don't get the roll. And here I'm just going to go for the Shore Up, right? There's no reason. I do still have Protect on this. In my team builder, I was weighing up whether I still have Protect on this. It's because I couldn't remember going for the Protect in this game, and it's because I was burnt. That's why I never went for the Protect. I thought there must be a reason, but unfortunately I couldn't get the passive recovery with Protect. So here he goes to the Iron Head. I'm just going to Shore Up. I am risking the flinch, but which he does get, but he has to get 2 to KO me, and Palisand isn't super essential, and the thing is, my best switch into this really is Infernape, but I don't want him to go for a close combat, reading me on the Infernape, so I feel like my better play is just to Shore Up. I have rocks up now, that was the most important thing. Rotom Heat is still going to take 25% when it comes in, so at least the Rotom Heat is going to go down. He does get the double flinch, so he's got a lot of chip off on me now, and this time I am going to pull the switch into Infernape, and I kind of want to talk about this play. At 27 health points, it doesn't look obvious that I would ever want to save this Palisand. I've left it in and got flinched twice, right? I don't think his play is ever to close combat, because if he lets me get a Shore Up off, then he's going to really struggle to flinch me down again a second time. So I don't think there's any reason for him to go for a close combat here. And that was the other reason that I was kind of happy to leave Palisand to get the second flinch, because earlier he might have gone for the CC, right? And the second Iron Head, he might have gone for the CC, predicting me to switch out, and I could have caught him there. But here, I don't think he'll ever predict me to switch out. There's really no reason to. But I do still want to preserve my Palisand, because I don't want to give that Rotom free Volt Switch momentum. That's really huge in this game. Like I said, this team is built with 3 pivots to kind of maintain momentum. So I really want to just make sure I can block those Volt Switches. Even if I just switch in, take rocks, take burn, take an overheat and die, at least he didn't get the Volt Switch momentum, right? So with that in mind, knowing that there shouldn't be any way he's clicking CC here, right? I'm just going to go hard into Wukong, take the Iron Head, eat it up, and then we'll see whether he is max speed, as I can potentially fire off a close combat. So here he goes for the Iron Head. Again, kind of expecting him to go into the Hippowdon and not risk... Well, no, sorry. Expecting him to probably stay in, but me wanting to see whether it's a tie or whatever else. I just go for the Slack Off. This thing's dead to rocks, so if he switches out, I don't lose anything. I just get up to a good range of health, and he could potentially not have the CC. I don't really know at this point his set. I don't have too much information. Like if he was like a sub SD or something like that, he might just have Iron Head plus coverage. I'm not really sure. So I'm just going to go for the Slack Off and kind of find out what's happening here. As it turns out that it is a speed tie here, and we lose that speed tie. So I don't think he's ever going to switch out and preserve this. At some point, it's just going to come down to who wins the speed tie. Close combat is doing less than my Slack Off is doing. But if I win the speed tie in a turn where I click close combat, I stay at a good range of health. If I lose the speed tie in a turn where I click close combat, I'm going to end up at a low range of health. It just comes down to the roll of the dice on the speed tie. So rather than messing around for ages and risk being crit or anything else, I'm just going to fire off the CC. And as it happens, we do win the speed tie on the lucky turn. So maybe a bit of repayment for the double Iron Head flinch, right? So we've come back up to a really good range of health. And this thing's actually really hard for him to revenge kill. He can go into Crobat and take 25% from rocks for sure, and then potentially Brave Bird or Air Slash, but I don't really mind that because that's chipping down the Crobat. Instead he goes into Gramble, not really knowing my full set. All he's seen so far is CC plus Will-O-Wisp. Possibly U-turn as well. I can't remember if I U-turned or not on the Hippo. I might not have U-turned wanting to not risk Rocky Helmet or something. I can't quite remember. But we're just going to fire off the Willow because we can burn this thing and then we're not too hit KO'd by anything it goes for. You can see there that we chew up that play rough. So that puts me in a really good spot against this Gramble, where really I'm just walling this thing and getting a residual chip off with the Flame Orb. I think that he could potentially be Assault Vest because I don't see a leftovers or anything, so that's really nice. If I can get rid of his Intimidator, then that is fantastic for Shark. It's already good that it's burnt for Shark and taking a residual chip, but it would be even better if it was just gone completely. Regardless, he does here go for the Toxic, so that shows me that he isn't in fact Assault Vest. So I'm thinking maybe some kind of resist berry. Could be like a Kebia for a Poison Jab Sharpedo, or I don't know, something along those lines. Not quite sure. Could be a Super Berry for a recovery, something like that. Regardless, I know that I can outspeed this thing and U-turn here, and I can go into Whimsicott. If he goes for Play Rough, I'm fine. If he goes for Earthquake, I'm fine. I don't think he's ever going to double Toxic, because I could potentially just sack off my Ape here. And if he wants to go for something like a Heal Bell, if he's a Cleric set, because I now know he's not AV, then that just gives me a free turn to get Storm in here and apply offensive pressure. He does indeed go for the Heal Bell, and that's really fantastic for me, because what this does is he switches to an Energy Ball or a Moonblast, Crobat and Rotom, and that is why Rocks are so important. Partnering Rocks with Storm in this particular matchup is fantastic. I'm just going to click U-turn here, because even if he stays in, I can potentially just go back into Ape, burn him again, or sack my Ape. I don't really need Infernape at this point, and if he goes into this thing, I get all the momentum. I don't think he has any real reason to sack Gramble. I feel like the Intimidate is still really useful in this matchup, so I don't think that he's going to give me Gramble there. This gets me right back out into Infernape, and I can potentially kill him with this CC here, and apply that offensive pressure again. I do think that Gramble looks like a fairly good switch into me. He's already seen that he can chew up pretty much any hit I have with his Intimidate and everything else. I can burn him, but he can Heal Bell that off. But if he goes Gramble, that's Rocks chip, that's CC chip, that's Burn chip. I'm just wearing him down. So I'm going to go for the U-turn as he does stay in. I thought that was more than likely, and I thought that if he did stay in, it would 100% be a Volt Switch. And this is exactly why I saved Crystal. It was for moments like this so that we didn't lose the board positioning that we're really desperately trying to hold it onto here. So he goes for the Volt Switch here, exactly as we expected, and we're able to just block that with Crystal. I think that the likelihood is, we've seen from his set, he's Volt Switch, Defog, and Will-O-Wisp. I think almost certainly his final move is going to be Overheat so that he's not completely walled by this. Regardless, I'm going to click Shore Up, because if he is like T-Bolt and he is walled by me, then I'm going to get that passive recovery. If he is Overheat, which he reveals to be, he has to drop his special attack by 2 stages to KO me, and that is fantastic, because that means he can no longer hit my Rotom, which gives me another Hydro Pump for free against his team. So it's that kind of scenario where I'm just in a really, really good spot to apply, again, offensive pressure with the dual stab of Rotom here. Now, I actually don't go for the Hydro Pump. I know that he's faster than me. I know he's going to Volt Switch out. There's no reason for him not to. I don't think he's ever going Hippowdon, because the Hydro Pump looks so free. I think he's going to sack a mid-ground or try and get in something like Crobat to pivot, or even the Manaphy. So I'm just going to go for Discharge. Like I say, I don't think he sacks Hippo, because Hippo is still really, really useful in this matchup. So I think the Discharge is just more reliable. If he does go Hippo, I'll Hydro Pump next turn. I outspeed him anyway. It's fine. He actually goes Gramble as the mid-ground there that I kind of spoke about, and we get the crit Discharge. Now, I did speak to my man at the game, and he said that he was going to just stay in a sack Gramble anyway. I believe he will have live comped this game, so if you want live comp, definitely go check out his side. I don't know if I plugged his channel at the beginning. I should have done. Fantastic content creator. But yeah, he was going to sack the Gramble anyway, so that didn't really matter too much. That Discharge crit was kind of irrelevant, I suppose. So we get off big damage there with Discharge, and we're able to just pivot out, predicting this thing to go for Energy Ball. He can't Ice Beam me to KO, and again, just like with the Palossand earlier, it doesn't look like I need to preserve Rotom. The reason that I did decide to preserve Rotom is because it's still really useful to keep offensive sacks. If he Ice Beams here and KOs my Whimsicott, that's fine. I can just go into my Ape, and I can potentially just click CC. Everything is pretty much in range of Sharpedo now. Like, with the Intimidate gone, and Rock's still up on his side of the field, Sharpedo is looking fantastic. All I need to do is make sure that the Rotom doesn't get the defog, and I'm in a good place. So here, as I say, I just preserve that Rotom Wash as a potential sack or a potential Hydro Pump on the Hippo. There's no reason not to. It's not a differential thing. It's purely just an offensive momentum thing. Here, I'm just going to go for the Energy Ball, as he does turn out to be as tanky as we saw earlier and lives that Energy Ball easily. I didn't notice the Energy Ball drop with, he got the Spadef drop on the Energy Ball there, so I didn't think the Ice Beam would actually KO me, but it did, so it didn't really matter. I think I would have still made the same play regardless. I guess I could have U-turned into Ape to click Close Combat, but I felt like this damage on Manaphy was so much more valuable for Sharpedo anyway, whereas if I brought in the Ape, it always brought out the Hippowdon, so I really felt like it didn't matter. The Spadef drop, I think I would have made the same play a million times and sacked off my Whimsicott there. It was fine. Here we can just go for the CC. We're able to get a lot of chip off on this Hippo. He does just stay in here. I was expecting the Earthquake 100% to come out this next turn, so with that in mind, I'm just going to go for the Will-O-Wisp to try and burn this thing. I think I can tank a Earthquake potentially if he's burnt. I'm not 100% on that, but I think I can. So I'm just going to go for the Willow. He could kind of whirlwind me out, but he doesn't want anything else coming in, right? He doesn't want Rotom coming in. I guess if I take Rocks plus Sand, I might go down. But still, I don't think he wants a Shark coming in for sure, because if Shark comes in and gets a free speed boost, I sweep his whole team. And that's really what I'm trying to do in Infernape here. As you see, he does go for the Toxic there. I think potentially trying to catch any of the more offensive switches I can make. But I think there's also a second thing going on here that you're about to see. I think he's realized, just as I have, that if I sack my Infernape to this Hippo and I get in my Shark, I get 1 turn of speed boost as I liquidation this to pick up the KO. Then I outspeed the whole of his team and KO everything, including the Crobat. So I think he's in a very difficult position where basically he wants to stop me from getting Shark in on a turn where I speed boost before Crobat comes in. He needs Crobat to be in on my Shark. If I'm Protect, which I am, he's lost anyway at this point. I think he kind of realizes that pretty much. But he's got to bank on me not being Protect and get his Crobat in before my Shark comes in. At least that's what I think is going on here. That's my perception of how he's playing this. I know that I have Assault Vest Metagross in the back, so I know that I can always deal with that Crobat anyway, and I'm in a pretty decent spot. But he doesn't know that, and I also know that I have Protect on my Sharpedo. But what this does make me think is maybe he has Substitute on Crobat, and maybe that's the other thing. Maybe he's like sub 3 attacks, sub 2 attacks, I don't quite know. Sub Roost, Toxic, Protect, I don't know. Some kind of shenanigans could be going on with a Substitute, and that would be really, really bad for my Shark, because if I click Protect as he subs up, I then am probably going to get killed by the Crobat. So with that in mind, I need to play around this Crobat very, very carefully. I need to try and figure out what the hell it's rocking and what it's going for, because I don't think he's just sacked his Hippo to click Toxic 3 times on an already poisoned Ape for no reason. I know OPJellicent is a fantastic player, so I know that he is also thinking about his board positioning and how he can win this game. The Crobat there does go for the Sludge Bomb, revealing that it's special. I think that it's likely got Heat Wave, but I know that I will tank even a Z Heat Wave. He could go for the Nasty Plot, but if he does, he's going to die to a Zen Headbutt as long as I land. So he actually reveals here to have the Z move, and it is the Firium Z. So this is superb prep by my opponent. Definitely really, really good tech here to take out the Metagross. And if I wasn't Assault Vest and bulky, and if I didn't have Protect on Shark, he actually might have just been able to clean up the game from this point with this thing. This thing is a huge threat. My Rotom has been chipped down so low I died to a Sludge Bomb. My Sharpedo would die for sure to this thing. So if I wasn't AV and bulky, if I didn't have Protect on Shark, this would put me in a really difficult spot. But I am Assault Vest. I do land the Zen Headbutt, so we never find out if he had the sub and was going to sub on my Protect anyway. But, you know, if we'd missed Zen Headbutt, that would have sucked regardless. In comes the Rotom. He could try and go for a defog here if he wants, but the Manaphy is already in range of my Darkinium Z, and this thing is already in range of my Liquidation. So this game is essentially over. I just go for the Zen Headbutt here. There's no reason for me not to. I could Bullet Punch for extra chip, but there's just absolutely no reason to. He misses Overheat. That doesn't really hurt me or really help me. It's just I needed him to kill Big Steve anyway. He was always in range of Liquidation. He didn't have the Pasho Berry, so I am adamant Sharpedo. So really, it just didn't matter at all. Now here, one thing that I do have to do is I do have to go for the Protect this turn with Sharpedo, because he's shown that he was faster than my Rotom, and I am adamant Shark. I don't know how fast this Rotom is. If it's timid max speed, he could potentially be outspeeding me. It could potentially have sped crept an adamant Shark with his Rotom. I think that would be pretty decent prep, and that was my guess. As soon as I saw he outsped my Rotom, seeing how fast he was, I was like, I think he's speed crept adamant Shark. So I have to go for the Protect here. It might seem just like I'm dragging out this battle longer than it needs to when I guaranteed to KO his last 2 mons, but there is a reason for it, right? I need to make sure that I pick up these KOs. I can't choke at this point. So we're just going to go for the Liquidation here. Down goes the Rotom guaranteed. Out comes the Manaphy. I could just crunch it for the KO potentially, but because I've seen he's incredibly bulky, I think it's Assault Vest. But I don't want to mess around. I don't want to deal with me miscalculating some crap. I'm going to go for the overkill. I am going to fire off the Darkinium Z to pick up this final KO. I know it seems completely pointless, but hey, we get to see a Z move animation, which is always nice. He got to flex his, so we get to show ours too. And Sharpedo does do what Sharpedo was traded into this team to do, picking up the final 2 KOs with a speed boost cleanup in the late game. This is why I wanted this thing on the team. Lycanroc, I didn't feel like was able to do this as much as I wanted it to. I guess, having natural speed doesn't snowball the way that speed boost does. Yes, Shark is pretty weak to priority, but when it has a good matchup, it can just snowball like this and rip through a team in the late game. So GG to my man OPJellicent. Your Bowland Bovines do move to a 5-1 record. I believe at the end of this week we were sitting in the 2nd seed in the standings. There's only differential between myself, DeathlyiAm and OPJellicent, all of us sitting on a 5-X record, I believe, at the end of week 6. So yeah, 5-1 record at the end of week 6. So in a really good spot here. Hopefully next week we play TheChoiceSpecs and his Orlando Magikarps. Hopefully we can pick up another dub and keep this momentum rolling. We are on a 5-game win streak, including ending OPJellicent's 5-game win streak. So that was incredible for us. Like I say, GG to him. Definitely check out his side of the game. He would have live commented. I'm sure it's very exciting. I will be over there watching because I'm a huge fan of his content. So see me in the comments section over there. Thank you so much for loafing around with me, guys, and I'll catch you again next time.